2021 KEDA Board Chair, and welcome to the KEDA 2021 Annual Meeting. So last March, I took on the chair role with really very little idea of just how much our world was about to change, like most of us, and really how it would completely upend our ideas about the role of an organization like KEDA, and how we serve our business community, how we support economic development. So 1 year later, I'm astonished and amazed at the quality work that the team has done to support our community this last year. And that's what you're going to hear today. You're going to hear some review, some highlights from last year, from 2020, as well as vision for what's next for 2021 from Joe Morrison. So why don't we go ahead and kick it off with Joe.
Thanks, Nathan. Hello, everybody out there in virtual land, our board members, our investors, our Kitsap community and beyond. Thanks for joining us today. We really appreciate it. To talk a little bit just about our agenda and do a little bit of housekeeping, we're about to have the first of two keynotes. We're going to hear from Suzanne Estey, who is the Executive Director of the Washington Economic Development Association. And after she speaks, we'll hear from Cheryl Nunez, who is the Vice President of Equity and Inclusion at Olympic College, and she'll be talking a little bit about the costs of inequity. After those two keynotes, what we're going to do is we're going to have a review of what we did in 2020 from Kathy Cocus. Hopefully you all know Kathy. She's been at KEDA for almost 20 years. We are blessed to have her in our community. I'm thankful I get to work with her every day. She's going to talk about the way they headed into the year at KEDA and what they did in order to support our community moving forward. After that, we'll have a break, and a break's a true break. We ask that you get up, relax. Hopefully we'll get into our break early. And when we come back, we have some business to attend to. We will elect board directors. There are no open seats currently. We presented a ballot 45 days ago to the investor members via email. And after we do that, I will present our 2021 annual plan. While there is a 13-page version of it, and you have access to that on email if you want it, don't worry, I'll present it in overview in less than 15 minutes. As we go through the day, keep your questions handy. Feel free to put them in the FAQ system or the chat. We will have time after I speak to cover some FAQs and do that. At the end of the day, we're going to go into our Economic Development Champion Awards. Stick around for this. It's really important. These are the people that you've worked with for years that did a lot to support our community, both pre-pandemic and in the pandemic. And we're going to hear some great stories about how they've supported Kitsap over the years. Now, without further ado, let's introduce the first of our two speakers, Suzanne Estey. And so you can read about Suzanne on the screen, and here is the truth about Suzanne. I've been in the role for about 6 months almost, and the person who does the most for economic development, top one, if not top three. I mean, you can talk about other people, but Suzanne is the person who's sending emails in the middle of the night on Sunday. Suzanne is the person who's advocating for tax increment financing to put another tool in the toolbox. Suzanne is the person that's pushing to get the word out about PPP so that Washington can get its share fair. Suzanne is the person who brings all of the different counties together to advocate for economic development and work as a community rather than in competition. She's incredible, and she's one of the most knowledgeable experts on economic development in the state of Washington, if not the nation. So without further ado, let's go ahead and start with Suzanne Estey talking about economic development.
Wow, thank you, Joe. That's very kind of you, and I hope that I can earn it. And I just want to thank all of you for caring about this work, for being part of KEDA, for supporting KEDA, and for thinking beyond yourselves during such a challenging time for our region, state, and country. Obviously, if you have healthy economic development, you have healthy communities. And I'm going to share with you a little bit more about why that matters and why small business in particular is so important right now. So the Washington Economic Development Association, very briefly, is Washington State's only trade association laser focused on economic development. We celebrated our 25th anniversary last year, and we're really all about, really just like KEDA, recovering, retaining, expanding, and recruiting jobs and investment across our whole state. Our strategic goals, again, very similar to KEDA, but they've pivoted a bit since COVID-19. We are really focused on creating this imperative to empower communities across our whole state with tools to recover from the crisis, to assist employers large and small, to again become globally competitive, and to grow jobs while also supporting an equitable economy. And we'll talk more about that, inclusive economic development. We really believe the time is now to rebuild our economic vitality. Very briefly, this is a statewide challenge. You can see here the unemployment numbers across our state and several very dark counties. You can see Kitsap there a little below 6%, but these numbers don't tell the whole story. We know that lots of people are underemployed or working 2 or more jobs. We have 3 top legislative priorities, and I'm going to just gloss through these. I welcome questions and conversation after the program today. We are really all about strengthening this economic development ecosystem, fostering catalysts for job recovery and growth, and increasing prosperity for all of our state. We've had a couple of big events, and I just wanted to keep in touch share that we're keeping in touch with what's really happening out there through these conferences, obviously social media and other tools. But we held a big economic recovery resources forum last July. And then we just had a big conference last week. And some key learnings from those events are that diversity, equity, inclusion have to be central to our work. Our main streets, our small businesses need more help. We've got to address these gaps in our broadband system. We're talking more about childcare than we ever have in the past, and we've got to work together. A little more specifically on this ecosystem. So the state, frankly, hasn't invested a great deal in economic development. And since the Great Recession, economic development programs at the Department of Commerce have been reduced by 63%. We're starting to reverse that tide. And then on the regional level, so KEDA is your regional public-private partnership helping grow jobs. At the regional level, we cut the investment from the state by 1/3. I will tell you, and this is really fresh, new news, that your very own Senator Rolfes, the chair of the Ways and Means Committee in the Senate, just rolled out a budget today that does indeed add $1 million each year to this regional economic development investment. So we will have had 4 increases in the last 2.5 years, which is huge. So we're reversing the tide, but we're reversing a tide of complacency. Very briefly about economic development councils. So this whole ecosystem, there's 34 across the state. We consider ourselves the ground game for the Commerce Department, and the only place where this confidential, cluster-driven, client-based work takes place. And there's tremendous results. KEDA has tremendous results in itself, but I want to make sure you have the statewide context. And these are pretty conservative numbers for the EDCs. Over 681 businesses served in the last 5 years who have then made specific investments. And these are pre-COVID, $1.682 billion invested in land, buildings, and equipment, almost 12,000 new jobs. And of course, through the COVID crisis, this ecosystem has been unbelievable. And hopefully you've heard about all these different grants that KEDA has helped get out. There are so many players in the economic development system, and I'm a huge believer in the big tent. I won't roll through this whole list, but it's not just about the ADOs. It's about so many players, from our tribes to our ports to our labor partners. A little bit more on fostering catalysts for job recovery and growth. We helped secure $240 million. Commerce is working Washington round 4 grant program that rolls out March 29th and will last through April 9th. And then Joe referenced this tax increment financing tool, House Bill 1189, Washington is one of only 2 states in the nation that doesn't have this tool to invest in infrastructure in order to grow jobs. And then very briefly about prosperity across our whole state, we're supporting the governor's diversity, equity, and inclusion investments. And then I just wanted to very briefly talk about small business. I think we can all name, a restaurant that has closed. It has just been devastating to see the pain and impact over the last year. So we're working, and KEDA is a big part of this, through the Washington State Small Business Recovery Working Group to try to fully leverage the federal tools that are available. And just today, so this is also, again, very timely, the US Senate voted to extend the Paycheck Protection Program. That is just one tool, but the scale of its impact is huge. If we fully leverage this tool, right now we're at about $4.6 billion in PPP funding coming to Washington, and we're trying to get to 6 billion. So now we have more time, and frankly, we need your help. This is just some of the social media we've been sharing about this effort. And then I just wanted to very briefly say there's so many other priorities within economic development. We need strong workforce development, housing. We've got to be sustainable in this work, and we need a predictable environment for businesses and employers to grow and thrive. So that's just kind of a drive-by of all that we have going and why this work matters. I just wanted to be crystal clear that your connections to this work through KEDA are crucial. And all of you helping over the last year to help our economy recover. And as we move toward recovery, try to grow jobs again, all of your work is so valued, and we appreciate you being part of it. So without further ado, I'm going to turn it back over to Nathan. Thanks so much again for the opportunity to be with you.
Thank you, Suzanne. As we go to our next speaker, Cheryl, I just wanted to add a little bit more on the equity and inclusion front. It's very clear that the effects of the pandemic have been felt more acutely for people of color in our country. On the economic side, you may have heard the stats that 17% of white-owned businesses have been closed due to the pandemic, versus 41% of Black-owned businesses. And at the same time, the pandemic collided with civil unrest last year after the murder of George Floyd and others, and really just reinvigorated the national conversation about race equity. And so the KEDA leadership team, really thought carefully about our role in economic development and equitable opportunity, realizing that we have an opportunity to do much better. So we launched a diversity, equity, and inclusion task force made up of members of our community, business and community leader and education leaders, and really with the goal of providing input for how we can transform our vision of economic development to be more inclusive. So you'll hear a little bit more about that task force in the annual review, but at the moment, I'm going to introduce one of the members of that task force, Cheryl Nunez. Cheryl is the Vice President of Equity and Inclusion at Olympic College, and it's been just a joy to get to know Cheryl over the last year. She's been a key participant of our task force, and really an important voice of clarity and accountability for us. So I'm excited to hear some of her vision for equitable economic development. So Cheryl, go ahead.
Thanks so much. I'm so glad to be with you. So I am going to hopefully share my screen successfully. Okay, so the title of my very brief presentation is The Cost of Inequality, and I think you will find that there is ample evidence that economic development involves more than mere growth accumulation or accretion of prosperity. It turns out, in fact, that accumulation abides by the law of diminishing returns, such that the greater and greater we grow, the less are the benefits, especially to the degree that the benefits are not accrued equitably across our society. So, life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness is a shorthand for social well-being and prosperity, but there is ample evidence that across the world, and especially here in the United States, these are not equally distributed. So there's a wonderful book by epidemiologist Richard Wilkinson and Kate Pickett called The Spirit Level, how equality helps everyone. And in the book, they set out to rank the developed nations in order of levels of income inequality, kind of a shorthand for inequity. You can see in this chart that the US is first, second only to Singapore. It turns out they've discovered a vast correlation between income inequality and a variety of social ills, no matter how wealthy a country or a region or even a state. So to the left, you can see those indices of social dis-ease on which the United States, arguably the wealthiest nation in the world, ranks #1 in the world. It turns out as well that the most unequal societies are bad, not just for the very poor. They are bad, relatively speaking, for the wealthiest of their citizens. So there is the Organization of Economic Development and Cooperation conducts every 3 years an international assessment of educational achievement. And unfortunately, despite our vast wealth, the US ranks far below where it should in this assessment test. We are 36th in the world in math, far below the international average. We rank 13th in reading and 11th in science, again, below the average. What's worse, we have much larger gaps between the highest performing and lowest performing students than in many countries. And much of those gaps can be attributed to social inequality. It has been estimated that the United States would score first in the world in reading if only the students in the richest schools in our nation took the test, and if only white students took the test. So our social inequality closely tracks race as well. Further, it's been estimated that if we were to bring the lowest performing students up to the baseline of that PISA exam, it would garner $72 trillion more dollars in our GDP. So there is a true cost to inequality, and there is a true benefit to closing these pernicious social gaps. So, you know, when we talk about educational gaps and the investments to close them, what we're really talking about is human capital development. And it turns out that our economy is driven not by wealth, but by the development of our chief asset, our human capital. I work at Olympic College. That's the business we're in. But frankly, that's the business we're all in. So we're facing a human capital supply and demand crisis right now. We know that today, nearly 70% of all the job openings in Washington state require at least some education beyond high school. We also know that 2/3 of job openings will require at least some college completion, such as an associate's degree, a certificate, or an apprenticeship. Unfortunately, In Kitsap County, we're falling short of that because only 42% of our citizens have an associate's degree or higher. What's more, Black and Latinx individuals in Kitsap County lag behind whites 14 percentage points in terms of baccalaureate degree attainment. Now, that's the supply side or the demand side. The supply side is somewhat extraordinary. We look at demographic projections and note that based on census estimates from the 2020 census, 4 in 10 Americans identify as other than white. And it is projected that by 2030, we will have 1 in 5 of us will be 65 and over. Very much dependent on a thriving economy, tax base, and social security net. By 2044, we will be a majority minority nation or a plurality nation. And by 2060, I'm sorry, trying to get you all out of my way, can't see. By 2060, 1 in 5 of our citizens will be born outside of the US. We will have tripled the number of 2 or more races. The Asian population will double, and Latinos, Hispanics will reach 29%. So at Olympic College, we're taking very seriously this supply-demand challenge. And we have determined that we must invest in equity. We must define excellent education, in fact, in terms of an education that confers benefits equitably to all social demographic groups. And we are doing that by reframing our entire strategic plan in these terms. We know from economic modeling studies that the investment in education, specifically in Olympic College, creates a significant economic return in our community. It's been shown that for every dollar spent by students on their education at OC, the return in lifetime earnings is 300%. To taxpayers, every dollar invested returns $3 in state revenue and social savings. And for society as a whole, for every dollar invested in education at Olympic College, $8.90 are returned in terms of taxes and public sector savings. I submit to you, as Nathan has suggested, that we can grow our economy and we can grow prosperity for all in Kitsap County by investing in human capital development, by closing vast inequities based on income, race, and ethnicity. And we can create economic development that confers prosperity on everyone. It takes a village, it takes an alliance, and it takes all of us. So I thank you for your time. Nathan, I'll send it back to you.
Thanks, Cheryl. I'll give Nathan a quick break, and I just want to offer our thanks to you, Cheryl, for the work that you've done with KEDA over the last year. We are dedicated to making sure that all of Kitsap, all its various demographies, communities, and cultures and races are included in the economic development conversation. 100%. Thank you for helping us get there and continuing to work with us. We're going to turn things over to Kathy Cocus now, who's going to tell you that the year went exactly as planned last year. Perhaps not. You know Kathy, she runs our PTAC program. She's our Director of Business Development. She's been at KEDA for 20 years, and she can do so many things, and I'm so lucky to work with her. Let's hear from Kathy Cocus about how 2020 went at KEDA. Thank you.
Hi, thank you. Thank you all for being with us today. And I'll just remind folks that this report, as well as the other presentations you're seeing today, are posted or will be posted on our website. So like everyone else in 2020, we had a plan and then we had to pivot. And the pivot was all about focusing on the companies that are here, communicating what was ready and available, focusing on a lot of grants, launching a Facebook group, as Nathan referenced, our DEI task force, and then we also had the pleasure of welcoming Joe as our new director. So in January, a little over a year ago, 300 of us were assembled for the forecast. And then we, continued on prepping for our annual meeting, finalizing the 2020 plan, and then we started working at home. And this led to things that we never thought we would be doing as a team, and being honored to help small businesses in any way we could. This is a timeline. I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I would encourage you again to go online and look at it, but it does have the highlights of the work that we started and continued throughout the year. So to begin our COVID-19 response, Teresa, who does a lot of great work for KEDA as far as communication, created a targeted website page on our website all about COVID. It was updated daily. We shared resources. We had weekly webinars. We sent out newsletters. We posted on social media, and we worked with many partners to make sure that the message was getting out there on what was available. The first big team effort was the Working Washington Small Business Emergency Grant, which is now known as Working Washington 1. Started in April with the governor's announcement and continued through June when we sent out the checks. We received over 800 hard copy applications in the first 3 days, and we were allocated not quite $320,000 to award. We had 2 volunteers assist us. We submitted 64 finalists for the state to review, and at the end of the day, 36 were awarded grants. Then we worked with CARES grants with different partners. And at this time, I would like Ed Wolf to share their experience with KEDA on doing the grant admin. Ed?
I'm trying to get there. Am I there?
Yep, you are.
Okay. First of all, welcome to, looks like over 90 people that either are panelists or attending. Welcome to all of you. The last 12 months have been one of the most challenging times for our entire community and for myself, my lifetime, and maybe yours too. A public health crisis leading to a tragic economic crisis that has impacted so many of our businesses and our residents. It was during this time, however, that our community came together to combat the pandemic and to stand up for businesses, Partnerships were strengthened. One such partnership was that with KEDA and its local governments, especially KITSAP, with small businesses and small business assistance. The public health response shuttered many small businesses, as we know, or drastically affected their revenues. We lost many, but I'll suggest to you that without this partnership, we would have lost many more. So we being the Board of County Commissioners, I'm speaking for all 3 commissioners, we can't thank enough Kathy, Teresa, and Joe for their work on with the small business community, helping them navigate many complex and overlapping assistance programs. Kitsap was the largest local distributor of federal assistance to businesses in our county and cities. This assistance came with maddening, and I repeat that, maddening reporting requirements and process. Through November, and I don't exaggerate, Kitsap County staff worked 10 to 14-hour days to meet these requirements. It could not have been successful without the substantial commitment of the KEDA staff. The challenges are not over. We all know we have a new American Recovery Plan approaching here soon, we hope. And we could not have been more successful without the substantial commitment of the KEDA staff, and we have to continue working with them. So finally, I'll just close by saying our partnership will continue as we help our local businesses recover and position them for success in the coming years. Thanks for having me here today.
Thank you, Commissioner. We look forward to continue to work with you on this and other programs. So as he talked about, we worked with several jurisdictions. We had informational webinars. We promoted them as widely as possible. And your KEDA team spent countless hours. We were honored to do so because we knew that this was what was needed to help those businesses. And these are the the three jurisdictions in Kitsap County that we assisted directly. We also administered another grant on behalf of Commerce, and that is also referred to as Working Washington 2. And the amounts down below. And as the commissioner noted, the county was the largest provider of funds at almost $1 million. And this is a quick breakout of 2.25 million is how much KEDA administered overall, going to 301 businesses and nonprofits. And this is a breakdown not by program, but by total of where those funds went. And Joe has a testimonial to share from one of those recipients.
Thanks, and I'm going to do this pretty lo-fi. This is from Gloria Rosario, who's with Ideal Commercial Uniforms. They're out in Bremerton, and she writes the following. Every part of the year last year started off exciting and hopeful, but the pandemic had other plans. Once everybody stopped working or went work from home, my income dried up. Schools were shut down, so that meant no orders for school uniforms or fan apparel. I was a staff of one trying to do everything. For the last 11 months, I worked overnight at Lowe's to cover expenses here at the store and my personal expenses. My husband lost a job as a result of the shutdowns. I worked another 5 to 6 hours a day here at my store processing orders to ensure my business would survive 2020. My business did not meet the first round PPP requirements because staff left prior to the shutdowns. Thankfully, KEDA and the city of Bremerton were able to offer small business grants, which I applied for and secured, helping with overdue rent, equipment lease payments, and other expenses. I'm thankful for the support of KEDA and the city of Bremerton. The grant opportunity was a lifesaver for small businesses in our community. Lots of stories like that. And back to you, Kathy.
Thank you. And thank you to Gloria for sharing that. Appreciate her being willing to do so. As Ed referenced and as Suzanne referenced in her presentation, economic development is all about collaboration and partnerships. And we could not have accomplished what we did last year or what we hope to accomplish this year and in coming months without all of the people you see listed here, as well as our chambers of commerce, our workforce development departments, and more. This is a team effort, and we thank each and every one who is part of the KEDA team. And we continue to work from home since last March. So we've been working from home for over a year. While doing so, we assisted almost 500 clients. That is outside of the COVID work, the grant work. Those clients represent almost 3,200 employees. We did process almost 1,000 grant applications, and we also fulfilled 170 research and data requests because those come in regardless of what's going on. Procurement Technical Assistance Center is one of our premier programs. This is your team. Mary Jo works for us on a part-time basis and is our dedicated paid PTAC counselor. We are also very fortunate to have two superstar volunteer contracting counselors, Mona Carlson and Terry Homburg. Mary Jo, Mona, and Terry are all retired from the Navy as contracting officers, so they are your best bet if this is something that you are considering or you just need a refresher. And I won't go through that again. I encourage you to go through this PowerPoint on your own and check out the details. As you can see, prime and subcontracting by jurisdiction. This is, in this particular year, Bremerton-based contractors received the bulk of the funds. This represents only those who are in the KITSAP PTAC Procurement Technical Assistance Center database. This does not represent all of the contract awards in KITSAP County, but everybody's getting a share. And it should be no surprise to anyone that the majority of the contracts in Kitsap County are through the Department of Defense. And in those prime contracts, the number one contractor is the Navy, followed by the Army, and then followed by the Coast Guard. As part of our communication efforts for COVID in April, shortly after the shutdown, we started doing weekly webinars covering, the PPP, the EIDL grants, what to do to help your business through COVID, what to do, how to pivot, what tools are out there, how to handle stress and the changes, in your employee status. And we had two regular guests that we are so thankful that they were willing to assist us every week. And that was Jamie Forsyth with Western Washington Small Business Development Center and Monica Blackwood from West Sound Workforce. And you can find the past webinars on our website and our YouTube channel. We do a lot of work on social media and digital media, and here are our numbers. We did work harder this year on changing things on our Google business page. And if you're a business and you're not utilizing that, I would encourage you to do so. In November, we launched a new monthly series called the Kitsap Digital Hour. And so far, they're going great. We started out with 50 or more attendees, and it continues to rise into 2021. Lots of audience interaction. Please come ready to ask questions. And our focus is on things that you need to hear or we think you should hear to help your business. In December, and a quick pivot for us, we thought that we needed to help those Main Street companies that were needing you to spend your holiday dollars with them. And we worked with a consultant to launch a Facebook group under our Facebook page called Shop, Eat, Spend, Kitsap. And you can see we got a lot of traction from this. She did a great job with a 6-ad campaign. The group is still active. We encourage you to continue using it and watch for what happens in Q4. These are the ads that are in-kind program with West Sound Magazine, and these ads are from the past 2 years. It's our goal to showcase companies that perhaps you haven't heard about. We go all around the county, and basically they're just saying what we hope you all say, why they like doing business in Kitsap County. In October, we welcomed Joe as our director. Nathan did a great job introducing him in our in-kind column, monthly column in the Kitsap Business Journal. And as Nathan referenced, we also started our DEI task force this year, reviewing programs and really hunkering down on what we need to do to be serious about addressing something that has not really been focused on. And our thanks to these individuals who has guided us and provided such great insight. We thank them for their input. And Greg, this is your slide. Greg George.
Can you hear me out there?
Yep.
Okay, well, you know, KEDA in 2020, we had a great budget developed. And historically, we've had solid sources of income from both the private and public sectors. And our annual operating income runs just north of $600,000 a year. Then COVID hit. So, you know, being a little unsure of the near future, like all of us were at the time, and not knowing how it was actually going to affect our economy, we decided by the second quarter, the executive team thought it was wise to adjust our budget by reducing expenses for all but the absolute necessary items. While the mix of our income changed, we were still able to meet 100% of our original budget and exceed our adjusted income budget by 9%. Not only our sources of income changed, but our expenses changed also. We moved to the remote online environment similar to what we're doing today, and we were able to decrease our expenses by 3% more than our adjusted budget. Now, the lion's share of our expenses, 80%, are invested in our existing business retention and existing business expansion. And as was noted earlier, we've made a special effort to reach minority businesses of color to help them qualify and stay in compliance with COVID relief funds. And none of this could have happened without Nathan Evans, our board chairman, John Powers, our previous executive director, Joe Morrison, our new executive director, and an extra special thank you to Teresa Mangrum, Kathy Cocus, and Susan Beach. They're the real horsepower of KEDA because they were able to get all these tasks done with making sure that the grants got processed. And this all happened because of their leadership and extremely hard work. Thanks to them and our excellent partners, we survived 2020 and have a positive position heading into 21. And I want to thank you very much. And back to you, Joe.
Thanks. Kathy, did you have any final words?
This is the last slide, and it just kind of sums up what we do and what you're going to be talking about. And, you know, Greg said it again, it's all about partnership and collaboration and doing what needs to be done. So thank you.
Well, we are 1 minute from break. So we're going to take a break. It's going to happen, and we will be back here on the dot at 3:50. I want to say one thing before we go to break, and that's that I can't emphasize enough that Kathy and Teresa have worked hundreds of additional hours over and above what they normally would do. And I know that during the pandemic, we're all doing more. They really were here for this community. And so I want to offer them a special thanks. I want to offer a special thanks to Susan Beach as well, who is the engine and button pusher and makes sure that we are on the straight and narrow, and is relentless about our financials. We really appreciate that. A preview of what's coming up. Next year's budget looks like this year's budget. But we'll see all of you in 5 minutes. Thanks to our volunteers, Terry and Mona. Thanks also to our part-time employee, the great Mary Jo Juarez, who works on PTAC. See you soon. Be right back.
Hi, everybody. Welcome back. It's 3:50, so why don't we carry on with the business meeting? So this is a business meeting, so we do have one piece of agenda that needs to be voted on. We do need to vote on our renewing directors. We have a number of terms that are expiring. Can we go ahead and get that slide up, Kathy or Teresa? So normally what we do, we like to just vote these as a slate. So we'll present the slate, and then as we take a look at that, I'll request that somebody could provide a motion to vote on that slate. So it's coming any second. Can we go ahead to the next slide? Perfect. Okay, so you'll see two lists there. The top list is the renewing terms that are expiring and need to be renewed. The bottom list is the officer slate. That's really just for informational purposes. There are no officer elections expiring, although a couple of terms that are being renewed. So you're not voting on officers, I'm just voting on the board of directors. So I think we're gonna I think I need a motion to go ahead and adopt them. And then we're gonna see a poll for you to just say yes or no, and we'll count that up. So I think I'm looking at the chat for the motion.
Nathan, it's up as a poll.
Oh, you already put it up. I was expecting we would have just the formality of the motion. Sorry.
Oh, we probably should have.
Yeah, yeah. If someone can put it in the chat in a second, that'd be great.
Yeah. And the poll's up, so then vote as soon as that's. I see a motion from Ed Stern.
Okay.
And a second from Rob Patanza and Cindy. I think you beat you, Cindy. So, okay, thanks. So we've got a motion to adopt the slate of directors presented as is with those 6 names. So you should see a poll. Just go ahead and click yay or nay, and we will take care of that. And let's just give about 30 seconds and then move on. I'm sorry, Teresa, were you planning on showing results, or do we just need to, when we have enough folks, can we just move on? Okay, great. So results are done. Okay, great. Thank you, everybody. Motion has passed. So I just want to thank you all for being a part of this alliance, for your support, investment, for your attendance at these things. We really are a great team, and I'm super proud of the team here and the staff and what they've done, as you've seen. So with that, we're going to move to the future. What is 2021? What is the vision that the team has put forth? And Joe is going to share that with us. So take it away, Joe.
Thanks, Nathan, and thanks everybody. If that, I'm not sure if the poll's closed or not, but if it's not and you're a member investor, please vote. We are going to go ahead. Can somebody give me a verbal, I see your slides?
We do not.
Oh, that's the story of my life. All right. Click the share screen button, go to this thing, click share. Can somebody give me a, I see your slide?
You're good.
All right,
I see
here we
it.
go. Thanks, folks. It's my pleasure to present KEDA's 2021 annual plan to you in an overview format. I do not anticipate this will take as long as we have for it. We've got 10 minutes for this and a few minutes after for Q&A. You know, think of Q&A and you can put it in the chat with anything you've seen today, whether it's last year's performance, whether it's questions about diversity, equity, and inclusion, the importance of economic development. What's going to happen is I'll go through this and I'll take questions, and then we'll turn things over to Steve Palatakis with Kitsap Bank, who has been kind enough to be our premier event sponsor for the day. And he's going to offer a few comments, and then he's going to take us into our awards, which are really, really exciting. And we have some interesting economic data in them as well. All right, let's move into it. So KEDA's work categories. Not a lot has changed here. I did add something called focus areas, which are just going to help us dial in and create themes for some of our work. And also there are areas where we know we want to particularly focus. So we've added that to the list. But we're working where we've always worked: business retention, expansion, and recovery. Normally that's recruitment, but recovery is job one at KEDA in 2021. Job one is making sure that we work with our private sector, with our small businesses, with all our employers and institutions to make sure we're getting through COVID as intact and as strongly as we can, so that when we come out of this pandemic, we're capable of roaring back. That's job one, and we're focused on that more than anything else. Organizational and resource development, that's building capacity for our community in the area of economics and economic development. That's building capacity internally as well and growing our capabilities. Third, communications, outreach, and marketing. And this is something that I think is interesting. I've been meeting with all of our board members and slowly all of our investors since I came on board in October. And this is one of the top things that people say KEDA's strength is. It's gathering KITSAP. It's bringing us together. It's bridging the defense industry. It's bridging naval-based KITSAP. It's bridging the public employers. It's bridging the private sector, Olympic College, our financial institutions, bringing us together for dialogue. So we're going to continue to do that, and we're focused on enhancing our marketing capabilities. And focus areas, more on that in a second. You've already heard a lot about one of them, which is diversity, equity, and inclusion. So let's get into BRER a little bit, B-R-E-R. Grant capacity. And COVID-19 recovery efforts are front and center. We ran a lot of grants last year. We touched over 300 small businesses and enabled them to receive financial support. We think that we'll be doing less of that directly this year, but that we will be enhancing efforts related to financial support for small business, grants. For example, Working Washington 4, $240 million grant program that Suzanne Estey referred to, opens on Monday. We're telling our community about that. We'll also be a bit of the ground game, interacting and working with small businesses to make sure they're applying for them directly. That said, we are running a grant program right now in the community of Bainbridge alongside the city of Bainbridge Island. And we have carved out time in our operational plan for additional work. Core efforts, PTAC's not going to go anywhere. That is a program that takes thousands of hours. It's 25% of Kathy's time. It's vital to what we do and to the small businesses in our community. We're going to continue it. Shop, Eat, Spend, KITSAP. Again, if you haven't become our Facebook friend, please do. And please feel free to share it with your communities and encourage them to post the great deals and opportunities and wonderful restaurants that they find in KITSAP. We will be amplifying that effort in fourth quarter for the holiday season and encouraging local spend. We'll also work with our local chambers of commerce. Other BRER efforts. This does include recruitment, and I'll be doing some work to identify what our recruitment strategy is more closely in KITSAP and what kind of companies might find this an attractive community to move to. You know, that said, the bulk of our work is really focused on recovery. It's focused on retaining the businesses and the employers that are here, identifying what it is that they need to move forward and expand their businesses. So moving out of BRER and the core of what KEDA does, we get into organizational and resource development. And with new management, there's increased focus in this area. There are just 3.5 of us full-time. There's just 3 of us full-time employees, and of course, a wonderful part-time employee. So it's really important that we do what we can to be as efficient as possible so that we can get out there and support the community, engage with it, and interact with it. So what does this look like? We're going to revisit a little bit of the soul of KEDA. The bylaws haven't been revised since 2007. We'll do that. Some mission, vision, and values work with our board, with our staff. Absolutely, it's time to look at that as well. You know, some of the external capacity building efforts that we have include published reports alongside Western Washington University. This includes our top employers report. It includes our economic profile, economic forecast work. We'll be doing that, and we'll be interfacing as well. We have carved out time to pursue a cluster acceleration grant with the State of Washington Department of Commerce. Board and membership. This was the second area when I've talked with the board about what they'd really like to see coming out of KEDA. And it was continued opportunity to engage, meet, talk, and be a part of something. And we are going to, as soon as it's possible, to do in-person meetings, get back to business briefings, get back to site visits when it's safe for us to do so. It's a high priority. We've scheduled lightly a September retreat. Should be able to work. We think we can make it work. And as we move forward with new committees, we'll be looking to add board members to that as well. So increasing some of our communications to the board, making sure that we have kind of an ongoing cadence and conversation. We'll be looking to do that. And then, you know, look, we'll look at all the operational areas of the organization. Again, there's just 3 of us, but we'll revisit job descriptions, calendaring, workflows, that kind of thing. And we have 2 big technology projects. We have a website need, and you know, every now and then our website explodes. And the wonderful Teresa Mangrum spends about a day to 2 days hunting down volunteers to get it back online. We think we can get a new website out in the next quarter. And then we have a need for a CRM or customer relationship management tool. You know, this is going to enable us to identify how we're working with clients, what was the last thing that they needed from us, what was our last interaction. It'll help us with our investors and board as well. So these are really high priority technology projects that we need to accomplish this year to move forward. We talked a little bit about marketing, communications, and outreach. And so let's just briefly cover these 3 main areas: community, events, and investors. So when it comes to community, we know there's 2 parts of this. Sometimes there hasn't been as much geographical reach of KEDA across Kitsap. Although we did a really great job, I think, as Kathy pointed out, reaching all of the areas with the different grant programs, both the ones that we ran and that we partnered with the county and other jurisdictions on. So we're dedicated to reaching the geographies, but we're also dedicated to reaching the people and making sure everybody's included in the economic conversation. For events, it's still important that we hold large-scale events that focus on thought leadership and bring us all together. It's important we hold small events. It's going to be a major part of what we do. I think we're going to continue digital events as well. Of course, there's going to be pent-up demand to go back to doing things in person. But really, we see that we will continue to have a digital footprint moving forward. And then investors, we are going to focus on our value proposition to you and making sure that we're continuing a conversation with our member investors as well, and inviting you into the conversation. I do want to say that much of what we offer is reinvestment within Kitsap. By supporting us, you support your community. And so we are continuing to work on that. We look forward to moving forward and growing that. I talked about focus areas a little bit. We've heard about diversity, equity, and inclusion, and I'm thrilled that this committee exists. It was a real privilege and honor to join KEDA and to find that there was already a group of committed stakeholders here working on that and acknowledging that they want to be more holistic and inviting in their approach and valuing of diversity. And I'm thrilled about that. And as long as I'm here, I really want to see that work continue, and I'll do everything I can to make sure it moves forward. Entrepreneurship and innovation. Every time I talk with somebody in the tech community, they say, love to get involved with KEDA. And then when I start asking questions about technology, they're really interested in instead entrepreneurship and innovation, which is my background as an economic developer. So that'll be the first committee that we work on and roll out. And we will have people both from the region and from Kitsap and from our board involved in creating that value. Defense is the economic engine that powers Kitsap. It is remarkable. It's 33,000 direct jobs. It's more actually, that's probably very low. It's 40,000 plus direct and indirect jobs. That's actually low. It's $4 billion as an economic footprint annually. We are going to pursue defense adjacent economic development strategies and make sure that we're doing everything we can to be a great partner to naval-based Kitsap. All right. Our budget looks a lot like last year. Speaking about it briefly, we do foresee some increased income in form of private and public sector investment. However, where we're not going to see as much income is probably direct grant management. Last year, that number was, I think, around 150. We're forecasting less direct grant support at this time. We may beat that. In terms of expenses, not a lot has changed. You know, the chief expense is the 3 full-time employees that work here and everything we do to support the community. The final thought, we're one Kitsap, and actually the person who's talking next is the person who I stole that from. This is about Kitsap, and everything we're doing this year is designed to be the right partnership, program, technical assistance for our community. Job 1, job 2, job 3, in economic development for KEDA is to focus on Kitsap and how can we be here for this community from Hansville to Olalla and all the places in between. What can we do to make sure that we're buffeted against the winds of this pandemic and positioned to thrive after it? I think we're in a great position. I think all the economic signals are pointing our way, but it's been really hard for many members of our community. We're going to be here to continue to support them. Thank you. You can reach any of us at these emails, and I'm happy to take any questions on anything we've had today.
I am not seeing any questions, although there was a little discussion among the cities and the county about the impact of COVID on their retail sales. And a question of, you know, the impact of e-commerce specifically. And I know that we have talked with the chambers about the need for some training.
Well, we'll take any final questions that anyone may have before we head over to our premier event sponsor, who we're really thankful for enabling us to come together digitally today. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. It's my honor to introduce Steve Palatakis with Kitsap Bank, and who has been such an advocate for KEDA over the years, who's a delight to work with on the board, who's so supportive. So Steve, we will turn things over to you to offer your thoughts about Kitsap, the economy, and why Kitsap Bank supports KEDA. Thank you.
Joe, those were way too kind of words. I should hang out with you more often, buddy. Thank you for that. So on behalf of Kitsap Bank and all my fellow bankers, I want to say thank you for attending today. And it's really our pleasure to sponsor this year's annual meeting. You know, Kitsap Bank was one of the original investors in the Alliance, and it has been a privilege for me to serve on the board, to be on the executive committee, and 2014 to 2016, I was your guys' chair. For me, I've always believed that being a good banker and an economic developer go hand in hand. Providing capital to business so they can grow and create quality jobs is what drives our economy forward. New jobs create new opportunities for all. And that's exactly what we have to be doing right now, is retaining existing jobs and creating new ones as we go forward. So the point we're at right now, it's springtime. We're hopefully getting on the other side of this pandemic. And I'm incredibly optimistic about our county and about the Alliance. You look at the price of housing and how it's escalated throughout the Puget Sound area. But I look to the east, I look to the south, and Kitsap is still far more affordable. And I think with the whole work from home thing becoming bigger and bigger, we're going to see more and more movement our direction. You know, I go back a few years ago, been a long time with the Alliance, and the thought of Amazon and Microsoft having physical presence here in Kitsap County would have been far-fetched, and now it's a reality. There's so much more I could talk about as far as the economy goes, but I'm just very bullish about us and how we're positioned going forward. I love the fact that this community is that we are small enough that we can all continue to reach out to each other, pick up the phone, talk to one another, and as Kathy said earlier, collaboration, and that's what economic development is all about. Our Alliance too, we have great leadership right now. Nathan and Monica, I want to salute you guys for the great work you did on bringing Joe to our Alliance. And Joe, I want to welcome you to your first annual meeting. And I also want to thank you, and I think everybody stands with me on this, for making this a nice, concise agenda today. Kathy, Teresa, and Mary Jo, you guys are the rock stars. And Susan Beach, I go back when I was on the executive committee, and your attention to numbers is so extraordinary. And it's like you invented this work from home thing long before we got into this pandemic. So as we come out of the pandemic and go forward, I wish everybody the best and good health. I wish us all a speedy economic recovery. And from all of us at Kitsap Bank, we just thank you for attending and thanks for listening to me. I sincerely appreciate it. So now we're going to get on to the fun stuff, the awards. So quick story. Back in probably 2007, I was attending a KEDA event at the Bremerton Convention Center, and I had met the speaker, but I didn't really know her per se. It was immediately clear to me that she was a total expert in her subject matter. She was incredibly articulate and smart. She was also just incredibly enthusiastic, very passionate about her subject as she talked about housing prices, property, how real estate moves around, how the title business works. For the past 3 decades, she has been the leader of Pacific Northwest Title. And like the banking business, definitely familiar with going through lots of economic cycles. Technology has changed her business in so many ways. And it's also in the banking business where we have to stay on top of cybersecurity and fraud. That's something that she deals with all the time. She's one of these people that is a lifelong learner. She invests in her staff heavily in training for her staff, and we've seen that in numerous ways. She's just one of the people that you can really count on. She's somebody that I have always admired and respected. And she's always been a great friend of our Alliance. A few years back when our Alliance was in need of a new location, she was incredibly creative, she was gracious, she was more than fair to our Alliance. Recognizing good people for doing good work is probably one of the things that give me the most pleasure. And I have to say, I'm just really, really excited and thrilled to present to Chris Ryland our Economic Champion Award. Congratulations, Chris.
Well, I'm good. Okay. It's not often that I'm speechless. I'm speechless. Thank you. So, wow.
We surprised you.
Absolutely. That was a sneak attack. I'm on deck for something else a little bit later. So I just can't thank you enough. It's just been a pleasure over the years to work with KEDA and all the people in KEDA, but all the community members, the cities, the county, the fabric of this community. It's just been amazing to see what people have accomplished together. The collaboration, I think people use that term a few times today, and I think we've all experienced it. I'm just shaky, so I'll just bow out and say thank you.
Well, I don't think we can let you bow out, Chris, because you have to introduce our next award winner. Okay. And if I was really clever, I would have had somebody bring the award up and then double sneak attack you. But I wasn't that clever. So we'll turn things over to you. And Chris, thank you so much for all you've done for this organization over decades. We appreciate it, and we appreciate you.
Thank you. I'm glad to have the spotlight off of me and onto somebody else. So with that, we have a 2021 Economic Development Champion Award. And it is just an absolute honor to have a discussion about this. Number one, I'm so excited for David. I think he's going to be reviewing this this recording. Luckily for him, he's on vacation. But again, I'm honored. There is the largest project that has ever been built in Kitsap County, the St. Michael Medical Center. This is a very high level, state-of-the-art acute care medical center. It includes the new medical office building. This project of over $500 million created so many jobs. In listening to the contractors and the architects, and again, this is all under the umbrella of David, it was very, very important that local subcontractors were used, that suppliers were used that came from Kitsap whenever possible to keep the dollars here. There was millions of dollars that were paid in taxes and fees and road improvements, and all half of that $1 billion was put back into this community. But I thought about this and tying it to economic development, and there's, the one thing that I've learned over the years is there really is 5 basic objectives to economic development. And this project just hit all 5 of them. The first one is make existing employers more competitive. So we've all seen the progression from Harrison to St. Michael's. And it's fair to say the largest service lines that we have is cardiac care, cancer, orthopedics. And that service line is just near and dear and very important to our community to be a thriving community. And those have been enhanced. And again, they're state of the art. So that was number 1. Number 2, to encourage new employers. So not only did they build this medical center, but at the same time, they now have a fully accredited residency program that's in place in Bremerton that is really going to help us with the shortage of general practitioners coming to our area and setting up businesses. Number 3 in economic development, capture more local dollars. A $550 million project of outside money that came into our community has had an incredible impact, and we're so fortunate for that. More people will stay in this community to be served by this state-of-art facility as opposed to going to Seattle, going to Tacoma. It is just a higher level, and this campus will serve the entire Olympic Peninsula, not just the Kitsap Peninsula. Number 4, attract new employers. The ancillary businesses that are going to come in to support the medical center will continue to grow, and that should certainly be noted. And then finally, number 5, access outside sources of capital, a really key element for an objective of economic development, to be better positioned for programs, grants, offerings from state and federal money related to healthcare and a healthy Kitsap. I think we're very well positioned for that. So that aside, the economic part, I just want to move on to David now. I've had the pleasure of sitting on the board with David since he arrived at what was there in Harrison. It has been an absolute pleasure. I don't know if I've ever witnessed an individual that has had more strength, more stamina, more compassion, more professionalism in the heat of battle like David has. Not only was the construction underway, but there was literally millions of little pieces to be choreographed with this construction and moving of the facility. The safety and the concern of the existing patients was always paramount. The quality measures were never compromised. The oversight of the staff, the budget of issues, the affiliation, on and on. And I'm not even going to mention the pandemic, because with that would, we know what our hospital went through and will continue to go through in serving our community in the pandemic. All of this has been under David's watch. And I know as a board member, I have a bit more of an inside look at how he's operated through all this. And I can just only speak on behalf of the entire community that we are so thankful to have David as part of our community. So here's to you, David. Thank you.
Here's to David and here's to Chris. And now we're going to go, Teresa, if you could, bankers free. If we could invite the bankers to speak. So look, PPP, let's go back to April. The Small Business Administration did 14 years worth of lending in 14 days. And they were building a program on the fly. And you know, I was working in running an economic development investment fund at the time, and it was a remarkable leap of faith for all the banks across the nation to step up and get involved with PPP. So we are awarding Economic Development Champion Industry Awards to the banks that have processed 100 or more PPP loans this year. We're going to start with Rosalia Garcia. If you have a minute to just tell us about what life was like at Wells Fargo on the PPP loans. And then I'll pick on Sean Gilfetter at Kitsap Credit Union.
Sure. Hi, Joe. Hi, everyone. Pleasure to finally meet you digitally, Joe. First and foremost, thank you so much for the award. I am so honored to receive it on behalf of Wells Fargo, but also want to give credit to the thousands of employees that we've had behind the scenes, doing all the work, connecting with clients, gathering all the different information that we need to collect in order to submit the documentation that's needed to push these SPP or SBA loans through. We recognize that our small businesses are the heartbeat of our communities. They are the key to us having millions of local jobs within our community. And I think by now we can all recognize the fact that, COVID-19 has had such significant economic challenges for our small business customers, for the nation. And as a company, we're really focused on an inclusive recovery, one that doesn't lose sight of the fact that we want to be able to strengthen the small business sector really for the long term. So it has been a learning process, continues to be a learning process. And in some cases, you may have noticed that we weren't as quick to open up the PPP loan process right away. And that really was because we wanted to ensure that when we went live, it was going to be the best experience for all of our small business owners. So, proud to say that last year alone, we were able to help over 194,000 customers in terms of number of PPP loans. 84% of them had fewer than 10 employees. And our average loan was about $54,000, which we're proud to say really, is a great example of us trying to do our best to support the smallest of our small businesses in our community.
Thanks, Rosalia. All right, we have a minute for each lender, and let's go to Sean Gilfetter with Kitsap Credit Union.
Great, thanks, Joe. If you guys can turn on my video, that would help. All right.
Woo!
All right, live and in person.
Live and in person.
First, I just want to thank the KEDA board, Joe, Teresa, Kathy, and the team for this great honor. We recognize that being here for our community is our purpose. So powering life's opportunities here at Kitsap Credit Union, we were able to fund 385 loans locally for $16.5 million. We recognize that that has saved over 2,000 local jobs by providing that financing, in the short run. And in addition to that, we extended on $110 million worth of loans within our balance sheet in our portfolio. And I just want to thank Tony Balleri, Megan Murphy, and Jeremy Mandry, some of the folks on my team that really helped make it happen. and we worked expeditiously to get those loans out to folks. And when they were being denied from other financial institutions, we took those folks that were not customers of ours, we took them in and helped process those loans. So we are very bullish on the future here in Kitsap County. We recognize that there are great opportunities before us, and we just want to thank everyone on this call for this recognition.
Thank you, Sean. Thank you for what Kitsap Credit Union does for this community. And now we'll go to the newest chartered bank in the state of Washington, Rick Darrow with Liberty Bank, and a remarkable PPP performance and story. Rick, your thoughts for a minute?
Sure. I thought Alan Fulp was going to be presenting this, but let me go through this just real quickly. First of all, thank you. We're pleased to be part of this community and to contribute in ways that we can. And I salute all of the bankers that participated into this program. But what we did was, we're like you said, Joe, we are the newest bank in the state. We've been around now for 12 years, though, interestingly enough, but we have 30 people within the bank, and we produced about $46 million of PPP loans. And it's really by reaching out to our community and being involved in that community. That puts us, if you look at us in terms of banks that are chartered in the state, that puts us as #1 in terms of percentage growth, given the size of our bank. So when you look at the size and the people that we have in the bank, we produce the most of any bank in the state in a percentage basis. And I'm really proud of that in terms of how we have 30 people that have been dedicated to helping this community. 75% of those loans were right here in Kitsap County. So very pleased to be part of this panel, very pleased to receive this award. It took a lot of hard work from the staff. And I know that we touched so many small business owners. This was a tough time for many of them. And it was almost an emotional moment in terms of banking. It was a point where, as a banker, you couldn't be more proud to be part of this. So thank you, Joe.
Thank you. And to bring us home, I apologize if I missed any bankers and or credit union people. And I want to say there were other financial institutions that are a part of us, that are a part of Kitsap, that did a great job as well. Financial institutions, we all know, but we crunched some numbers and we found that these were the institutions that produced the most loans in quantity. So Steve, your thoughts on PPP and final thoughts?
Yeah, thanks. So PPP, when we announced it to all of our bankers that this is what we needed to do, I was like just overwhelmed by the response from our employees. Everybody was in, and it wasn't just lenders. We had people from IT, retail, even HR got involved in PPP, and everybody had one mission: how do we help all the small businesses? So it was quite the experience. We had people, I think not since college, kind of pulling the all-nighter, working weekends, and I was just blown away about what they were able to do and what they accomplished. So credit to all the bankers here. What was also really cool is we were able to do 71 PPP loans to nonprofits here in the Western Puget Sound. And when you think about the nonprofits, small businesses are incredibly important. As you guys know, that's really my passion. But nonprofits tend to not always have the most staff, maybe not always have the most sophistication. And we were able to provide those guys with so much, so then they could provide so many of the social services that were needed so much throughout the pandemic. But I was just glad that we could be part of it. It was a lot of fun. But it's one of those fun things that I don't know that I would sign up to do it again, but if the community needed it, we'd be there to do it. Thanks, Joe.
Thanks to all of you. Look, PPP and all the stimulus, but particularly the PPP program saved American small business, saved it so amazingly, and it's really like nothing else. It's going to be fascinating to look back on. All right, we're almost out, but I want to introduce Commissioner Wolf, who's going to tell you about our final award winner, who is the person behind the scenes, the person who works so hard. And I would love it once Commissioner Wolf gives you his name, everybody throw their hands up, and we'll talk to you later. Commissioner Wolf, you have the floor.
before I do that, I love this community, and I think you can see why after the testimonies that we've heard today. We come together. So thank you all. Certainly, congratulations, Chris and David and all the industry champions without going through all the names. And I'm not going through all the names because 5 times Joe has said, you have a minute, Ed, you have a minute, Ed, you have a minute, Ed. He knows of my background, my professional background. So I've done this in practices. I'm going to do it in a minute. First of all, is Eric Baker here? Hopefully, I don't see him. Please tell me he's here.
He is in fact here.
Yes,
Eric,
boss.
he's
Okay.
coming.
All right. So he will be there when I finish my minute opening. Who's Eric Baker? He loves cruising, loves his daughter, of course, and his wife, cruising on the Carnival type ships, and he's a runner. Eric Baker has been with Kitsap County for 31 years, starting out in DCD, 31 years. I'm speaking for all 3 commissioners when I say today that he is the go-to for all 3 commissioners on all policy issues, all policy issues. He gets the job done. He gets it done timely, with conviction, and always accurately, underlined accurately. He researches for the board. He makes policy recommendations to the board. He's trusted by the board, and he's respected by the board. And I'll just say that his track record, at least since I've been here for 7 years, his track record speaks for itself. So lastly, I'll just say he gets the job done, my quotes. He looks for no credit. He looks for no adulation. He just gets it done. That is Eric Baker, under 1 minute. Thank you.
Well, thanks, Ed, and thanks, everybody. Again, this is incredibly humbling, especially to be put in the group that we have here, the Chris Ryland, Dan Schultz, pillars of our community, as well as all the banks. The Small Business Assistance Program that we did over the last year was probably the most important thing I've done over the last 30 years. Working with so many people, I want to thank all the KEDA staff for working with the small businesses to make a lot of the funding available. So many people at the county made this happen, between Ame Campbell in Administrative Services, Vicki Martin, all the folks down in the auditor's office, federal funding and small business record keeping don't always match up so well. So between KEDA, ourselves, and the auditor, it all became possible. And again, this is incredibly humbling, entirely unnecessary, and I'm incredibly uncomfortable. So thank you very much and have a great evening.
All right. Well, Eric, you're incredible, and we really appreciate working with you. And so the folks out there should know Eric was the person behind the scenes, working with everybody, internally in the county, with KEDA, at all levels to make sure things happen with grants and more. Anyway, let's move on to closing this out. If you have questions, I've seen some hands raised, just post them in the chat. We'll get to them. We're back at this next week. It's not an annual meeting. It's not an economic forecast, but we're going to be talking about Kitsap's digital broadband future with the Kitsap Public Utilities District on April 1st, April Fool's Day at 11 a.m., the Kitsap Digital Hour. Please join us. Broadband is a necessity. If we're going to talk about equity, people need access to broadband. They need to be able to pay for broadband. That's about it. We appreciate you. We thank you. Thanks for being part of KEDA. Email us anytime, and we look forward to working with you moving ahead. Take care. Bye-bye, everybody.